flooding that happened in Texas. And the flooding in Texas really shows how in this country we have a lot of sheep that are easy to control. So easy to control. Now, I am going to focus on the easiest to control group in this country, which is absolutely MAGA, but it's not only MAGA. In fact, I'm going to start with the other side of things to show that it's a little bit of a bipartisan effort, even though MAGA is dominating on the easy to control by the government group, when at the same time thinking the exact opposite. So here is the liberal left-wing side. So, messed my back up. Anyway, anytime something like this happens, right, and government services, which might have been cut, not specifically connected to the event, but related government services were cut, it's easy for you to make a quick buck and feed into partisanship as a left-wing media person or liberal media person. All you gotta say is, this is Trump's fault. Trump cut this stuff and now people are dead. Because the average American just lacks any critical thinking. Most of them will just fall for it. They don't think deeply at all unless it's someone they disagree with. A right-wing media person says something, then it's like, you lying, blah, 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 right? But if someone that they agree with says, this is Trump's fault, and gives you no concrete evidence that it's his fault, average American will fall for it. They'll be like, man, look at those girls are dead now, all because of these Republicans. Again, you don't even have to make a specific case. You don't have to actually connect and say, Trump cut this service, and because that service was cut, now these people are dead. You don't have to go that far. All you got to literally do is say, he cut weather service, and the weather service was understaffed, right? And just simply stating that fact and saying that there was a tragedy, that's enough for the average liberal, average left-winger to be like, yeah, it's Trump's fault, right? No critical thinking to be curious, to be like, wait a minute, I understand he cut the weather service, but can you tell me what particular service that he cut caused this? Like, for example, let's say they used to have 3 weather balloons and now they only have 1. Now, we can't definitively say if they had the 3 weather balloons that this wouldn't have happened. When I say wouldn't have happened, obviously the flood would have happened, but in terms of people being able to escape, getting a more accurate weather forecast on a lot of people to escape, right? You can't say that definitively, but that's at least a solid case. It's like, okay, you got 1/3 of the weather balloons that you need specifically to avoid this. Chances are the cuts are related, but you don't have to go that far. The average liberal, you don't have to say any of that. All you got to literally say is, weather service is understaffed because of Trump's cuts. Now people are dead, and they will all automatically, oh, Trump, right? So it's not just MAGA. MAGA is the easiest to control in this country. If I were a bad actor, some billionaire, and I wanted to do some really corrupt stuff, I would definitely go right-wing, 100%. 100%, especially with right-wing media being so dishonest, easy to buy off. I would be controlling so many, all these people, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. I would pay off all of these clowns and have them repeating whatever rhetoric I want, and I would totally be going full on MAGA so that I could control, because I know they're the easiest, they're the biggest suckers in the country, right? But again, the lack of critical thinking is a bipartisan thing. It's just that MAGA is winning in that competition. Now, I'm going to focus on MAGA on this conversation because that's more important, right? Let's be logical. Right? So the liberals and left-wing people, what are they saying? They're saying you shouldn't have cut the weather service. So they're like, you know, if they could, they would want to hire back the weather service and have more weather people. Well, guess what? That would not hurt, right? So the left-wing perspective, even if misguided and misinformed, would not hurt the situation. In fact, potentially, maybe it could have helped. right? We don't have any definitive evidence, but if they're pushing for more weather service, I'm not really worried about them, right? Worst case scenario, we go over budget and we have 10 people when we only need 5. I'm not so worried about that. Now, what is the right wing pushing for? Right wing is pushing for all these reckless cuts without any kind of consideration, right? They're firing people on probation, regardless of how well they were doing, regardless of experience level, regardless of the importance of their job. Just like fire, it's all a numbers game, right? No compassion, and also no consideration for the security of our government. They literally fired people that they had to rehire because they were critical roles, right? That's what the right wing is pushing for. They're pushing for reckless, childish governance, right? So, in a case where potentially weather cuts do lead to deaths, I don't see any definitive evidence that that's the case here, but if that does happen, it will be the right-wing perspective that leads to that, right? They're the ones that are pushing for, oh, cut, it's too much, everything, like, Doge can just get up and say, this thing is fraudulent, we don't need this, and they'll buy it, right? You don't see any right-wingers questioning Doge. You're like, wait a minute, are you sure? All you gotta do is say it's DEI or whatever buzzword, and these dumb fucks will just be like, yeah, waste the gun. And then you put a new bill, which adds to the deficit, and all you gotta say is over 10 years, or what? This thing is so easy. You could give any lame excuse, and they'll be like, oh. So, here's the reality. We don't know if the cuts are relevant to the deaths. But what's more important than that is, if they were relevant to the deaths, the American right wing would be easily distracted from that reality. I'm gonna say it again. If in fact, which I don't see any evidence of, if in fact those little girls are dead right now because of Trump's cuts, he would not be held accountable because the right wing would be very easily manipulated into thinking that it's Biden's fault or it's not his fault or whatever it is. Mass excuse to MAGA, and they'll fall for it, right? So, for example, I see certain rhetoric. I hear people talking about what are they saying? Oh, people saying stuff like so. For example, let's say, let me show you how it works. Let's say I'm a right-wing media guy, right? If I'm a right-wing media guy, basically in this era, I'm basically state media, so I need to protect the government, right? The government did cuts, and if potentially those cuts hurt people, I need to protect them from, because basically right-wing media operates as like a PR team for the government, right? So I need to put out videos that puts blame away from Trump. And listen, it's so easy. All I gotta do is say something like, these liberals, they're so dumb. This was a natural event. And it's not the first time that floods happen. Floods happened when Biden was president. Floods happen now. Floods will always happen. How is it Trump's fault that the place got flooded? Now think about how dumb that is, right? Imagine the fact that I could actually say something so dumb and I could get my right-wing audience to be like, yeah, those dumb liberals trying to blame Trump for everything. They got Trump to hate that syndrome, right? They don't even have the critical thinking to say, wait a minute, hold up. What are these people actually saying? Are they blaming Trump because there was a flood? Is that what anybody's saying? Is anybody saying that? Right? No critical thinking is like the most basic level. It's not even a matter of being smart. It's just a matter of like having an average intelligence to think at all. Like, you're telling me that storms happen all the time. So you must be implying that people are saying the storm happened because of Trump. But is anybody actually saying that? And if you actually check, you would see that absolutely nobody is saying that. Nobody is blaming Trump for the flood. I mean, I should say nobody. I'm sure there's some moron somewhere saying that the storm is Trump's fault. But most normal people, right, what they are saying is they're trying to imply that the cuts that were made led to a bad forecast. And with the bad forecast, these people were not adequately prepared, right? They didn't take adequate steps. So for example, like a hurricane, right? If you tell somebody hurricane is coming, but it's going to be a light hurricane. It's not that big of a deal. Then people stay in place. They don't really worry about it too much, right? If you tell them it's going to be, I don't know what the categories are. I should know. I've been through hurricanes. Category 4 or whatever it is, going to be crazy. Then people pack up and they leave. Or they go someplace secure, right? So it's not about whether the storm happened. It's about basically informing people about the level of danger that's going to be coming so that they can take appropriate actions. And apparently the reports that were given out were not accurate, right? But again, think about the fact that I could literally, as a right-wing creator, I could simply say that, floods happen all the time. These liberals are lying, trying to say like Trump caused the flood. Like something as stupid as that. And I could get an average MAGA audience to be like, yeah, those stupid liberals. Like, what the fuck? Like, people are just dumb in this country, man. I don't know what they're teaching us in school, but it's crazy. And again, like I said, it's not just now. It's more critical on the right, because they're the ones that are supporting these aggressive and reckless government cuts, which can lead to our deaths, right? Which can lead to pain and suffering. They are supporting this blindly, allowing right-wing media and the corrupt elites in the GOP to give them whatever lame excuses. Like, they could cut anything right now. They could cut anything. Like, for example, right now, they could have cut, like they said, they cut 17 million people off of healthcare. They could have cut 50 million people off of healthcare. And all they would have to say is, it was fraud. We found 25 million illegals that were collecting Medicare. And typical MAGA audience, yes, they're cleaning up the fraud. Like, it's that easy. You can just say whatever the fuck you want to say, and they would just be like, yeah. Like, come on, man. That's like, come on. That is just, it's just really, really embarrassing. Let me see what crazy comments I have in there. They say, because, of course, it's cloud seeding. It's cloud seeding. Breeze 30 says the forecast couldn't be heard because there was no time. It hit us all at 3 a.m. So let me tell you something. That's another thing I wanted to mention. The difference between very dishonest state media that you get from right media versus, media that's a little bit more honest, right? And I have to pause because Breaking Points has been a little bit, they've made it a little bit more difficult for me to be openly, promoting them and supporting them. But I was watching their report on this, and I know you're not going to hear that kind of report they gave from anyone in right-wing media. Now, obviously, Crystal is more on the liberal side, so, it would serve her rhetoric or her ideology to blame it on Trump and, the Republican Party. And she certainly had some negative things to say about that. But you know what she also said? Now listen to this. This is something you never hear from almost anyone in right-wing media. She says, again, it would serve her to be able to say it's all Trump's fault. She mentioned the fact that this thing happened in the middle of the night. So she talked about the alerts and whether they got enough alerts out. But she also mentioned, hey man, people were sleeping, so would they even be able to get the alerts? Right? That would go against the argument of like, hey, let's just blame Trump. Right? So at the same time, while she's calling out Trump, she's calling out the Republican Party, she's calling out the cuts, right? At the same time, she also mentions something that actually challenges her perspective, right? Which you're not going to get that from right-wing media. All right-wing media are going to tell you is everything they need to tell you to protect the government. Because that's what it is. Right-wing media is state media, right? So they're not going to sit there and tell you about, well, some of these cuts that Trump did is actually reckless and problematic and whatever. And, they don't, nothing like that. Every single thing they tell you is going to be all to protect the government. That's what it is. You watch Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, state media. And the thing about it is, that's why I'm saying, people are just dumb in this country, because they're not even creative with it. Did you see the video where Tim Pool was in the White House? They actually put a beanie wearing doofus in the White House. And what does he do? This guy, you guys just joined the live stream, click on the like button. He is in the White House And he's not even smart enough to hide the fact that he's state media. The first thing he asks is like, hey man, something like how does the administration handle how the media is so bad to them? And I'm just like, what the fuck? You're media. You're supposed to be challenging power, right? So if anything, the difference with you, like, let you tell it, is that left-wing and liberal media, they're dishonest or whatever, and they're serving the elites or whatever it is. So you're supposed to go and lead by example, which is challenging power in the right way, right? You ask them challenging questions, but they are honest and appropriate, unlike the liberal media. But that's not what he does. What does he do? He goes and brown noses the government. This is a guy that's supposedly independent who was literally funded by Russians, right? And this dude gets on in the White House, and all he has to say is, hey man, how do you deal with how mean the media is to you? I mean, he's even talking about himself in the third person, because Tim Pool is the media. I hate this, the independent media thing, right? The independent media, right? They do news media, right? But then they talk about the media like it's something else. Like, this is like the trick that Apple does. Apple with their iPod. The iPod was just an MP3 player, but they wanted to have their products on a different section. MP3 players over here, iPods over there, right? You have the media, right, with mainstream media, and then you have these people on YouTube who are we're just regular people, you know, we're just like you. Hey guys, subscribe, click on the like button. No, you're news media. That's what you are. You're independent news media, right? But again, this guy supposedly is independent media, and he goes in there, and all he's doing is brown nosing the government, right? He's no threat. Donald Trump has no fear of Tim Pool, has no fear of Steven Crowder, has no fear of Ben Shapiro, or any of these folks in right-wing media. Now think about the reverse. When Biden was president, Biden was terrified of anybody who was not 100% controlled, right? Even somebody like Brian Tyler Cohen, he got access to the president, but even him was complaining about not getting access to a lot of the top level Democrats. In the end, he ended up getting it, but they didn't even want to talk to him. If you are afraid of somebody like Brian Tyler Cohen, that's to let you know the difference of the left-wing media and the liberal media, right? The establishment is afraid of left-wing media, right? They are afraid of left-wing media. They're not trying to go and do interviews, even the more progressive types. You're not going to see AOC. Now, they're changing now. They're trying to be like the right. But you haven't seen a lot of shows with AOC, except in the beginning, right? AOC was not invited on a lot of progressive media, right? But on the other hand, with right-wing media, you could be a top-level Republican and you feel comfortable going on Steven Crowder, all these channels. What does that tell you, man? What does that tell you? Right-wing media is state media, right? The government is supposed to be afraid of the media, right? Because the media is supposed to hold them accountable, right? But when you have somebody like Steven Crowder and Tim Pool goes on there, how do you guys manage to with all the mean things that the media says about you? How do you, like, what the actual fuck? So I'm gonna end on this. The thing in this country with this MAGA movement is you can do whatever the fuck you want to do, right? No matter how bad it is, could lead to people dying, could do some serious damage to this country. And all you gotta do is make up the most lamest ass excuse. And all the right-wing media will repeat it, and their audiences will believe it, right? You could do great, like Trump could do something right now that literally leads to the death of 20,000 people, right? And all they gotta do is say, oh, actually, the reason why these people died is because something Biden did when he was in charge, and the media's lying to you. And all the MAGA people are like, yeah, I knew it. Dumb as fuck, man. Dumb as actual fuck. This is the Debate Me channel. Can I get a single like? This baby channel, baby comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Don't be a dumb fuck. Don't be a sheep. Use your brain, man. All right, guys. And I'm out. Because it is raining. See, that's what it is. Oh, by the way, remember they said that the Democrats were controlling the weather? Oh, man. That's my Ashton, whatever his name is, dropping my headphone. Ooh. Remember they said that the Democrats are controlling the weather? So that's saying that the government has the ability to control the weather. So if Trump is president, and the government has the ability to control the weather, because that's what y'all was saying when Biden was president, then how the fuck did Texas get flooded out like that? Who did that? And by the way, there's no Epstein files. There's no list. People are dumb as fuck, man. Middle of the night. Oh, by the way, guys, there's no Epstein list. Nothing to see here. We're going to close out the case. That's what I'm telling you. Like, MAGA stands for nothing. All this talk about Epstein. The only reason they cared about Epstein is because there was connections to Clinton. Right? That's what it was. They didn't care about the girls that got abused or women that got abused. They don't care about none of that shit, man. The reason they cared about Epstein was because it was something they could use as a tribal thing to go after Democrats. That's the only reason they cared about it, right? So that's why Trump can easily just say, hey, man, there's no Epstein list. Everything's fine. We're closing it off. And he's going to be fine. Of course, some of them going to say a little something. But ultimately, they don't give a rat's ass. They don't care about nothing about what Epstein did, right? It's all tribal politics. That's all it is, right? They do not care. The amount of evidence that we see that tells us that Trump is the worst offender with Epstein, right? It's so obvious now. But a bunch of sheep, no, they trying to... Dumb as fuck, man. Dumb as actual fuck. All right, man. I'm out.